Welcome to Fall Retreat. Give it up for the band. Man, guys, I am so excited to get to spend the next couple of days with you guys. And my greatest hope is that over this weekend, that some of your lives will be forever changed. That some of you will experience God in such a way that it redefines who you are, that you'll have a defining moment, a moment with Jesus that he shapes you in profound ways. Man, I believe that this weekend has the potential to not only change your identity, not only change how you think, how you live, how you do everything, how you date, how you do sports, like how you function. I believe it has a way to literally reshape your entire existence. But before we dive into what we're going to be talking about this weekend, I just got to take a moment. I got to introduce myself. My name is Matt, if I haven't got a chance to meet you guys. Thanks. Just so you know, I'm a redneck from Georgia. And so do we got any other rednecks in the room? We got any other any other Southerners in the room? Come on, make me happy. Any more Southerners? All right, couple floating around. There we go. So here's what you got to know about my Southern accent. I don't like vowels, and vowels don't like me. So if you hear me say a word and you're like, what's he trying to say? Just like flip the vowels around, and it probably makes a little bit more sense. The other thing you got to know is I'm red-green colorblind. We got anybody else who's red-green colorblind? Yeah, I got a couple of folks. All right, good. Here's what that means. My wife's not here, so I'm not going to match. So if I come on stage with an outfit and you're like, that don't work, I don't know. That's good. Like, you can tell me, but I won't know the difference. And also it means that red lights are terrifying and Christmas decorations are boring. And so, like, that's just kind of how I live. The other thing that you got to know about me is I come from a wild family. Like, my family tree is crazy. So just to help you get to know me a little bit, some things you got to know is my dad was an addict who turned into an amazing human being. And I love and I respect him so much. His dad, though, was first arrested at the age of 8 for moonshining. So my granddaddy was a moonshiner in the hills of Georgia and got arrested for running liquor over the mountains at the age of 8. And then when I was 8, I played with the handgun that murdered his father. That's kind of a screwed up childhood right there, ain't it? So I played with the gun that murdered my great-grandpa. It was exciting to me. I was pretty good with it. And so my other grandpa, he only went to school at age 10. And at age 10, his daddy pulled him out of school, gave him an ox and an axe, and said, boy, it's time to grow up. And he became a lumberjack. And my mom's mom stood on the front porch crying for the entire first year as my mom went to nursing school because they thought nurses were only those girls in those dirty films, and they didn't want their daughter to become that. We come from a wild, wild family. Man, my parents have gone through some of the hardest things couples can go through, but by the grace of God, they survived. They made it 45 years through marriage. I cannot be more proud of them. I love them. I respect them. I value them. And after 9 years of a horrific illness, my father passed away just over a year ago from a terrible disease. Other things that have marked my life, my sister went through a windshield and lost half her face. And so we've had to walk through what that tragedy looked like. In high school, I ended up breaking my back in the middle of high school. That was a crazy moment for me. Through all of these really highs and these really lows that we've experienced, I somehow or another got lucky, and I got to marry the love of my life. And so I've been married for 17 years. Her name is Pearl. She's awesome. She's supposed to be here this weekend, but we got 3 kids. And if you see her, give her a big hug. I love my wife. We got 3 kids. We got 2 boys by birth, 1 by choice. We just said, hey, we'll claim you as our own. So she's been hanging out with us for a couple of years now. Over the course of all these moments, I've had moments where I absolutely loved Jesus, and I've had moments that I was absolutely despised by faith and religion. And I turned my back on all things organized religion. I shunned God, walked away from God, rejected God, didn't want anything to do with him. And then I've also encountered God in such a profound way since then, that there is literally nothing I can do in my life other than pray and beg and work to hopefully create moments for you to encounter God in the same way that I've encountered God. And so my prayer is that this weekend will be one of those moments that no matter what you're walking in with, no matter what your questions are, no matter what your fears are, no matter what your struggles are, what your past is, what the last year's been, that this is a weekend that you can encounter God in such a profound way, such a life-changing way, that you leave forever changed. Because I believe each and every one of you has a mark on your life to do something significant with your life. And you are not just a high schooler. You are the future. You are the leaders. You are the movers and the shakers. And I desperately want to see a generation marked by Jesus in such a profound way that our culture, our state, our nation is different because of each and every one of you. And I got enough faith to believe that it could start tonight, this weekend. I know that some of you guys, you're coming from wild homes as well. Wild years, broken homes. Homes that some of these moments that you're coming in from are scary moments and broken moments. And there's some of your moments over this last year, they come from terrible choices others have made in your life. And some of you are walking here after a year of making some terrible choices in your own life. And my hope is that your life is not defined by those moments, those encounters with tragedy, those encounters with pain. My hope is that you are defined by your encounter with Jesus. And I believe that can happen this weekend and that Jesus can change us in life-altering ways. So here's what I know to be true. And here's where we're going this weekend. I know that each and every one of our lives is on a journey. And each and every one of us have a starting point. We have a birthday where it all got started. And we all have a moment that we came screaming into this world butt naked, saying, I'm here, we all got a birthday, we all got a starting day. And I also know that we've all got moments where life was really good, and life started going uphill, and you felt like you were winning the team, you were getting noticed, you were achieving the things you wanted to, moments that you were full of love and joy and bliss, and you're like, this is amazing, I'm winning, I'm achieving, I'm feeling attention and discovering what makes me unique and special. But I also know that we've each got moments that go downhill. Moments that take our breath away, that bring pain, that bring fear. Moments that, if we're honest, is just awful. Moments that it feels like life can't get any lower. For me, some of these moments when life seemed like it was the lowest, it was the car crash that sent my sister through the windshield, and it altered my family's history that led my dad to becoming an addict. It was my dad getting arrested for drugs from that. It was me breaking my own back years later. It was my heart getting broken by the girl who betrayed on me. It was the pain of growing up being called Fatty Maddie all the way through middle school and into high school. It was the sting of failure whenever you wanted to achieve something, to make the team, to perform well, and you just didn't. We all have lows, and we all have the moments that just take our breath away, that make us gasp in hope. And life is this series. These ups and downs, these highs and lows, these great days and these hard days, over and over and over again until it's not. And just like every one of us has a birthday, each and every one of us will also have our last day, a day that we cease to be on this planet. And none of us know how far away this day is. And I hope that all of us live to be 100 years old. I really want to live to be, that's my aim, is to live to be 100 years old. I want to keep moving forward for as long as I can. Anyone else aiming to be 100 years old? Like, you just want to keep ticking for as long as you can. Like, as long as my heart is working, then I want to keep living. As long as my brain is working, I want to keep moving forward, which there's some question if my brain's working right now, but I'm aiming to live 100. But there will come a day. There'll come a day when I'm not. There'll come a day that I'm clocked out, that I'm checked out. There'll come a day that my eternity will come. And here's the truth. See, we all will enter into eternity one day. In eternity, that is where that part of us, that is 1,000% us, that's not bone or flesh or marrow. It is that thing that is 1,000% only you, that is 1,000% made for eternity. Your soul, that deepest part of you, that part of you will one day move on, and it will live on for eternity. And here's the thing, eternity has one of two options. Your soul, that 1,000% only you that is made for eternity, whenever your death day comes, you will either spend it in heaven or you will spend it in hell. Those are our only two options. After this day, we either have heaven forever with God, or we have hell forever apart from God. In heaven is where it's perfect and it's holy and it's exactly how everything is supposed to be. It's where everything beautiful and good is at. It is beyond measure how great it is. In hell is forever without anything good or true. It is without any hope or love or joy. It is where life is miserable and rage and anger and hate and abuse is let loose to run rampant for eternity, fully released for eternity, and it's awful. It is the worst of the worst, removing all good things, all things that are holy and right and kind. Hell for eternity is terrible. And where we go on this day, our last day, heaven or hell, all comes down to what we do with Jesus. It all comes down to what we do with Jesus, to the invitation that he is giving us, inviting us into a relationship. It all comes down to what happens when we encounter him. And this weekend, we're looking at 5 different people who've encountered Jesus and what they found when they encountered Jesus, what happened whenever they paused to engage with his questions, to look at him. And tonight, we're going to start looking at one of the most bizarre encounters that I think Jesus may have had. This encounter, to everyone who would have known this kid, they would have thought, surely this kid running up to Jesus would have had it all together. Surely he's the one whose life is perfect, who checks all the boxes, done all the right things, looks the right way, who's never had a zit at the wrong time or farted in front of his crush, who did it right. Surely this is the person who's made all the right choices and wears the right clothes and has the right friends and lives with the right acceptance letters in the right house in the right neighborhood with the right parents, with the right followers and the right subscribers, the right everything. This kid had it all going on, and we're simply introduced to him as the young, rich ruler. Here's why that matters. Who doesn't want to be rich? Who doesn't want to be young? Who doesn't want to be the ruler in charge? And better yet, who doesn't want to be young and rich and in charge all at the same time? This kid had it all going on. He had youth on his side. He had prestige on his side. He had the perception of being blessed and favored and honored. And everybody back then thought that if you were young, if you were rich, and if you were in charge, then surely you were a good person. Surely you had it going on. Good things come to good people is what they believed. And all too often we believe the same thing, that good things come to good people. And so if your life's going good, then you obviously must be good. Surely if you're rich, God is blessing you. Surely if you're rich while you're young, God is really, really blessing you. And surely if you're rich while you're young and you're put in charge, then you have to be the best of the best of the best of the best. And surely if anyone has God's favor, if anyone is good enough, if anyone has done it right, this kid walking up to Jesus, everyone would have been like, they got it all figured out. They got their life right. They're the ones who've got it figured out. So this rich young ruler comes up to Jesus. In fact, he doesn't come to Jesus, he runs to Jesus. And then in this giant show, he falls down and he kneels in front of him. And he's trying to show just how serious he is. And he's asked, what do I got to do? He comes and he says, what do I got to do? What do I got to do to know that I have inherit life? And he said, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? He runs with this big show, falling in front of Jesus and, good teacher, what do I need to do to have eternal life? See, this kid is smart. He is smart enough to know that he has a birthday. He's also smart enough to know that he's going to have a last day, and he's trying to figure out, has he done enough? Has he achieved enough, presented enough, accomplished enough to be able to make sure he's okay when this day comes? And he's like, what do I got to do about it? So he asks, what do I do? What do I got to do? And see, Jesus sees this kid. He sees that he is trying. And Jesus is no fool. And he sees past all the running up and the kneeling down. He sees past all the showing off of having it all together. He sees past all the pretense of putting up. He sees into this kid's heart. And he starts testing it. He says, why do you call me good? Jesus asked. Only God is truly good. Why all the big words? Why all the big show? Why all the big worry about appearing like you've got it all together? Quick time out. Anyone else ever feel like they got to appear like they got it all together? Anyone else ever feel afraid that at any moment others are going to discover just how screwed up you are? Anyone else afraid that at any moment all the fears in your heart are going to be seen? All the drama at home the neighbors will find out about? Anyone afraid that someone's going to find out how dysfunctional your home is and mom is basically a functioning alcoholic, barely holding it together? Anyone afraid that their dad is going to say that racist joke when you know you're begging him not to say it in front of your friends because you know your dad's a closet racist? Anyone ever hear conversations around you happening and you just feel so dumb because you're like, I don't have a clue what they're talking about? Anyone desperately wanting for someone just to affirm you and to say that you're enough, that you've achieved it, that you're not dumb or ugly or stupid or a reject? Anybody sitting here saying, man, I don't even know what this whole church thing's about, and I'm terrified of someone asking me a question because I am questioning everything myself. Anyone else relate to this young rich kid? Trying to appear like you got it all together. Trying to appear like you've achieved it, earned it, made it. So this kid runs to Jesus, falls down before him and declares, I am good. What do I have to do to be good? In this show for approval, this show for a pat on the back. And Jesus sees through all of his facade, sees through all of his richness, sees through all of his achievement, sees through all of his begging, sees through everything. And he answers the question the kid comes up with. And he says, to answer your question, you know the commandments. You know what it means to be good enough. You know that you must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You know that you must not testify falsely or cheat anyone. And you know you need to honor your mom and dad. He's like, I know that you know these things. And Jesus tells the kid exactly what the kid knows. Jesus tells this kid what he already knows he's supposed to be doing. What everyone around him is telling him matters most. See, this kid, he already knew not to murder, not to sleep around, and not to steal, and not to lie, and not to cheat, and to honor mom and dad. And these are the things, these were the marching orders of everyone in his entire culture. And he's like, I'm doing that. I'm achieving that. These are things that I have already done. But Jesus knows that you could do those things outwardly, but it has nothing to do with your heart. It has nothing to do with your heart. And so Jesus knows that I can still hate someone and not murder someone. Jesus knows that I can still be full of lust and perverted and never commit adultery. Jesus knows that I can be greedy and jealous and never steal. And technically, I can never lie, but present the truth and twist the truth always to favor me. Man, I can not cheat and still slack off and coast through life. I can honor mom and dad and still despise every day of living with them. I can appear to have it all together. We can appear to have it all together on the outside, and our hearts be totally jacked up on the inside. Man, can you just hear Jesus' moment with this kid? I mean, we can appear to have it all together, and our insides be raging and broken and hurting and rotting. And some of us showed up tonight working so hard to appear like we have it all together. To appear like we're one of the guys, one of the girls, that we're enough. And it's exhausting.
It's exhausting trying to manage the image, the feed, the brand, the appearance of what others are expecting of us. And outwardly, you are doing so good at having it all together, or at least thinking you do. But inwardly, feeling like you're unraveling and praying that no one sees when you break. You can only imagine. That is exactly what Jesus was seeing with this rich young ruler. See, Jesus says to follow these outward appearances, these external behaviors. And this kid, Jesus explains, here's the things you're supposed to do. And this kid real quickly goes, I'm doing those things. Teacher, he replied, I've obeyed these commandments since I was young. I'm doing this. And Jesus was like, I know you have. I know that you're playing the game of being good enough, playing the role of appearing to exactly be what everyone else wants you to be. I know, and my heart breaks for you. My heart breaks for you. And Jesus knows the weight of the image you're trying to carry. Jesus knows the weight of trying to make sure that you're seen in a certain light. Jesus knows the exhaustion of trying to work to be loved and accepted and belonged and wanted. And his heart for you is the exact same heart he had for this young kid. His heart for you is the same. I love this. It says, looking at the man, Jesus felt genuine love for him. Genuine love. Guys, I don't know what types of encounters you've had with church. I don't know what type of faith you've experienced, what type of Christians you've experienced. But what I do know is when you encounter Jesus, the real Jesus, the Jesus who gave his life for you, what you encounter is genuine love. A genuine love that loves you so much, it will speak to the deepest parts of you. A love that will invite you out of the fake lives that we get sucked into a true life, a true freedom, a true joy. And that is exactly what Jesus does with this young kid. In love, with a broken heart, with kindness and gentleness, longing the best for this kid, Jesus goes, there's still one more thing. There's still one more thing you haven't done. Go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. Wait a minute. Jesus, are you trying to ruin this kid's life? I thought you loved this kid. Are you trying to make him poor? Are you trying to make him the laughing stock of everyone in the community? Jesus, how is this really love? How is this really kindness? How is this gentleness? How is this good for him at all? Jesus, what are you doing? Jesus, this is insane. And if you're sitting there going, I don't get this. This is asking too much. Why doesn't he just love the kid? Why is he asking him to sell everything? If you're asking that question, so did the rich young kid. And he looks at Jesus and he responds to Jesus. And he says, his face fell and he went away sad, for he had many possessions. See, the kid felt sad because what Jesus was actually pointing out was not what made the kid good enough for heaven. But he pointed out what the kid was clinging to, hoping in, trusting in, relying on. What the kid, he had defined his world. He had set up a system to define if he was valuable enough or good enough. And he was defining his own life, his own worth, his own place in society, his own place with goodness. And he had all the rules laid out of what he needed to do. And Jesus lovingly, with genuine love, just steps in and blows it all up. And he's like, do you want to define your life? Or do you want me to? And Jesus reveals that you can externally have it all going on. You can externally appear to be perfect. You can have all the right things going for you. But as long as you are clinging to those things to make you enough, those things to make you whole, those things to make you happy, those things to make you feel valuable, those things to make you feel like you enjoy this life, and for those things to help you enter into the next after this day, you're missing it. And you too will walk away sad. Because guys, we don't get to define what makes us enough. See, Jesus then turns to the disciples and he says how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. See, to be rich in that day was to believe to be enough, to have achieved, to feel like you have God's blessing upon you. To be rich was the ones who had it all together, to have earned it. And he says this, and it amazes them. And he says, dear children, it is very hard to enter the kingdom of heaven. In fact, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the rich person to enter the kingdom of God. A big old camel in an itty-bitty needle. Basically, it's impossible for anyone to ever earn enough, to be good enough, to have it all figured out enough. The weight of expectations will crush us. And Jesus lovingly invites them into a new life. And the disciples that day looked at Jesus, who had just blown up all of their perceptions of what it meant to be enough, to define what it meant to achieve, to earn, to accomplish. And they asked the question that you and I got to ask. Who then in the world can be saved? Who then in the world will ever be enough? Who then will ever have arrived to have accomplished? Man, knowing that eternity is coming, and that knowing that eternity is coming, that heaven and hell are real, and that we will never be good enough to make it into heaven. Knowing that we can't carry that burden of being good enough. How do we do this? How do we live in this world when it is exhausting to try to be good enough? How do we survive and not hate our lives? How do we not be controlled by our lives, trying to jump through all these hoops, defining if we've made it? How do we make it through this life and not ruin our life and miss eternity? Jesus, still feeling that genuine love, he said to them, and I believe he says to us, that humanly speaking, it's impossible. But with God, everything is possible. Humanly speaking, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Jesus told that kid, and he tells us, if you want to define what makes you enough, what makes you good enough, worthy enough, achieved enough. Define how you see a successful life, how you live. If you want to define your world and your dating habits and your identity and your worth, what makes you acceptable and good enough, if you want to define the meaning of your happiness and what is okay and not okay to do, you can do that. You can define the rules. You can define your boundaries. You can say what's right and wrong. You have the privilege to do that. You can do that. But please hear this, in genuine love, with grace and kindness and absolutely no judgment. When we try to define our lives, our values, our worth, our good enoughness, our boundaries sexually, our behaviors, our rules that make us good and bad, when we try to make reality in our own image by our rules, we will always, eventually walk away sad. You will always discover, eventually, it is not enough. And we will sadly discover, no matter how good you live this life, now how hard you work to make it to the top, it is never enough when this day comes. And if you do not cling to Jesus, you will regret it for eternity. Because humanly speaking, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Man, I don't know what your last year held. I don't know what you walked in here carrying. I don't know what you're trying to prove, who you're trying to get to accept you, to earn value from. But the question that I want to beg of you tonight, the question that I want to beg of you tonight is, who defines you? Who defines that you're good enough? Who defines that you have worth and value and acceptance? Who defines that you've achieved enough? Are you willing tonight to just lower your defenses a little bit, to lower your guard, and to encounter Jesus and his genuine love for you? Are you willing to say, God, what do you see when you look in my heart? Because I'm working really hard to make everyone else see that I got it together. I'm working real hard to make my parents think I've got it. I'm working real hard to be accepted. I'm working real hard to achieve it. I'm working real hard externally to show that I've got it. But Jesus, what do you see when you look in my heart? What do you see when you define me? Man, are you willing to say this weekend, maybe I had it wrong. Maybe Jesus' definition of me, of what's good, what's wrong, what's life, what's valuable, is something that I need to reconsider. Maybe I need to accept that, humanly speaking, it's impossible. But with God, it's all possible. Are you willing to ask God, what do you see? To ask him what's going on inside of me that needs you. Are you willing to say, Jesus, I'll let you define me versus me defining me? Are you willing to say, Jesus, I trust you in your definition of me and of my life and of my value and of my purpose and of everything? And Jesus, even if it means I'm feeling like I'm losing everything, I know that if I'm holding on to you, I'm actually finding everything. Man, do you want to feel Jesus' genuine love, his worth, not only for today, but for eternity? Because sadly, many of us are just like the young, rich ruler. We want Jesus to change our lives, but just don't touch my wealth. Jesus, I want to go to fall retreat and I want you to rock my world, but don't change my dating life. Jesus, I want you to change my world, but man, I really like the boundary sexually that I'm playing with right now, so don't ask anything there. Jesus, I want to feel accepted. I want to feel valuable, but just don't touch that. Jesus is saying, I love you so much. I died for you. Will you trust me enough to define you? Because eternity hangs in the balance. Are you willing to say, Jesus, here's my life. I trust you. Let's pray. Jesus, it is terrifying to lower our guards, to lower what we have worked so hard to prove that we are enough. It is terrifying to stop trying, to stop achieving, to stop pretending, to stop showing ourselves to be something that we are terrified of finding out that we're not. It's terrifying to step back and to say, maybe I've defined worth and value and acceptance and achievement all wrong. Maybe I've missed defining what matters most in life. It's terrifying to say, God, what do you see when you see in my heart? And Jesus, I pray that tonight, for those of us who are exhausted from trying to present, we'll slow down and let you redefine us. For those of us who want to experience you but don't want you to mess with other parts of our lives, I pray that we'll let our barriers down. God, for those of us who are just convinced we know what's best and we don't want you to come close, I pray that you remind us eternity's coming. And Jesus, I pray that as we encounter you, we encounter a genuine, profound love that not only redefines us, but it redefines us for eternity. Jesus, I pray that tonight, if a student, a leader, an adult, if anyone here needs to say, Jesus, redefine me, we'll open our hands, we'll open our hearts, and let you work. Because, Jesus, we want to encounter you in profound, life-changing ways. We love you, we thank you, and we trust you.